let me talk to you about why everyone needs an IUL. I say everyone 50 and under needs an IUL. We might even go 55 and under if they've got money, because you can take a 55-year-old and heavily fund something for 15 years and create something. But everyone in the United States that is 50 and under needs an IUL. Here's why. Social Security is not a plan. Social Security is not a plan. Think about this. Do you know the definition of a Ponzi scheme? A Ponzi scheme is when you take new investors' money and you pay back old investors. Does that sound a little bit like Social Security? I'm telling you, that is not a plan. That is not a plan. The 401k. There's a fallacy with 401k. A 401k is not designed to produce a thriving retirement. Why? Because you are rolling forward a gigantic tax cyclone bomb by putting money into a 401k. Now, do I think you should not have a 401k? If someone has a job provided 401k that has a matching plan, I'm absolutely all for contribute up to the match. Why? Because the match is free money. I always explain to clients that, look, there's 3 types of money you want to look for in retirement. The first is free money. That's a match, okay? The second is tax-free money. That's what we're gonna grow and build in the IUL. And then the third is tax deferred, only because it can grow faster without the taxes coming out all the time. But you're kicking the can down the road for a tax situation in retirement that you're not going to want to deal with. That's why part of the estate planning that the estate planners are all doing includes a lot of Roth conversions, taking those 401ks and doing a Roth conversion to ease the tax cyclone bomb that a 401k will create in retirement. Here's the other thing. An IUL is a financial magic trick. That's why I think everybody needs one. I heavily personally believe in them. It's a financial magic trick because you take post-tax money, you grow the money tax deferred, so you're getting the magic of compound interest on a tax deferred basis. And then the real magic trick is when you can start pulling it out on the back end tax free. Adam, that's my 3 big thoughts on why everybody in the United States that's 50 and under absolutely needs to be overfunding an IUL. What thoughts do you have on that?
Well, when I'm talking with people, just to kind of build on that, I like to, ask them what it is that their life insurance is what they wanted to accomplish. For a lot of people, they want to make sure that the life insurance has enough capital to care for themselves and their family as they mourn the loss and figure out next steps. But some people will tell me that um, they would like to create generational wealth. One of the questions that I ask people, would you like for your life insurance to help you save for retirement? And that throws people off because people don't realize life insurance can be used that way. What they can create is something called a 7702 plan. It's simply a tax-free retirement account where their life insurance is structured in a way to accumulate more cash value than an ordinarily structured life insurance policy would, like an IUL. And that enables them in the future to borrow that face amount or that cash value that is against the face amount. And most people are using, like you mentioned, things like 403bs, 401ks. And financial advisors love those products because they can just park your money and earn a commission every year with doing very little, if anything, to quote unquote manage your money. The more they park, the more they make. And so that's why financial advisors like them. The federal government likes those policies too, to be fair, because those policies will also generate tax revenue for the federal government. But those tools do not solve for 2 very important things, taxes and market volatility. If we look at the current tax code, if every American was taxed equally, which we know they are, but let's say they were, right now we are near the lowest tax-wise this nation has been since probably the Clinton administration. So when you ask people if you think taxes are going to go up in the future, they're going to say very likely yes. And the reason why is because they're thinking the current tax code was put into place initially before the pandemic, before student loan forgiveness, and before the war in Ukraine. At some point, the bill comes due and taxes are going to go up. The stock market is very volatile as well. It takes 6.5 years on average to recover from a downturn in the market. So a TFRA really solves for those 2 problems. These tools are used by the wealthy to save and avoid taxes, and there are a lot of companies that use them. even to pay their own executives. Companies like GE and Bank of America use these tools quite often. So then I ask people, when you retire, do you want to maintain your current lifestyle or are you happy to settle for less? And people will always tell you that they want to maintain, they don't want to settle for less.
It,
Then I ask people, has your financial advisor shown you what your income will be when you retire using your current plan? People will always say one of a few things. I don't have an advisor, or they're going to say, no, he or she hasn't shown me anything. And that's where I start. I'll ask a series of questions of them. I'll get like their current age, specific, their target retirement age. Are they married? Do they have kids? What is their health like? If it's if they're below 55, then a TFRA is likely a good tool for them because they've got, at least, 10 years to retirement. I asked them, do they take any medications or has the doctor diagnosed you with any conditions? What's your living situation? Do you rent or do you own? What tools are you using right now to save for retirement? For most Americans, that's going to be tools that have been set up by their employer, such as an IRA or a 401k, a Roth savings. Do you have any money saved outside of your retirement account? What products are you using to save that money? Then I will get into their own TF or their own 401k or IRA details. I'll ask them, how much are you currently saving of your paycheck? What is your current match? What is your income? And is this amount your income alone? And the reason why I'm asking those questions is because what I'm trying to do is discern if they're putting more money into their 401k than their company is matching. And if so, without changing their budget, I'm now able to take that percentage amount, which is going to be usually 2, 3, 4 percentage points. I can calculate that dollar amount and I can move that into a TFRA because what they're doing is they're over contributing to their 401k, which is going to create a higher tax bill in the future. And that's a
and
great way to find money without actually increasing a person's monthly spending budget.
and when you start having,
I'll ask them, does your income include more than one income stream? Do you think your income is going to increase in the future? If so, by how much? What are your liabilities, like the mortgage, loans, credit? I get specific amounts from them. And I also ask this final question, is there anything else that you're planning for financially on your road to retirement to take care of college, parents who are aging, charity, and et cetera? And with all that information now, I'm able to help individuals have a very clear understanding of what their current situation is like, whether their current plan is getting them where they want to be, which invariably it is not, because people have never had this conversation with anyone who knows how to guide them. And then I'm able to prepare an approach that's going to be good for them personally, that's going to fit within their budget and something that is achievable.
and
And
Adam, let me ask you
yes, sir.
this. The questions you're asking is just something that came to me. Like, you're so good at this that the questions you're asking, it's like that's like muscle memory, right? It's
Right.
like the first time someone plays golf versus watching a professional, right? The first time
Mhm.
someone plays golf, it's like, how do I do all this? The questions you're asking are just I'm listening to them. I'm going, we got to get. Can you create in advance of next week's call a
Mhm.
document with just some of those questions that you just
Yeah,
went through? Because I'm
sure.
watching you do it, and I'm going, I mean, it's just muscle memory for you at this point, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You've gotten that
it
good
is.
at it. But if we could put a document together and then we could pop it into Discord, like, here
Yeah.
are my top questions, I think that'd be a
Mhm.
great resource and a great tool. Um,
Absolutely. I could do that. Yeah.
so we're getting a question on Discord about what a TFRA is. That's the acronym that we use to describe tax-free retirement account.
Mhm.
It's an IUL, right?
Right.
It's just we're describing it in a term. Here's the thing: when something feels familiar, it feels comfortable. So TFRA
Mhm.
sounds like a familiar term to folks, way more familiar than IUL. So when
Mhm.
Adam talks tax-free retirement account, we're talking about IUL. It's the same thing, but great
Right.
question. You know, Adam, one of the things I always like to do too when I'm explaining the base concept, because those questions you went through are going to help. It's going to tell you what to sell them. Well, one of the
Right.
base concepts I like to do, and Shane, if I can draw here. All right, so just give me 2 seconds. All right, hang on. This is something I always like to draw for clients right off the base here. I threw this complication in on them last minute, Adam.
That's right.
I was like, hey, I want to draw.
Yeah, and they're adapting. Look at that.
So when people are open to these concepts, I always like to do a drawing with them and show them, like, conceptualize the concept. And then what after that, Adam, I want to get back to the money finding questions, because that stuff you were talking about, that's how people go. None of my clients can afford $1,000 a month. We're going to tell you how to find that money. We're going to get back into that. But when I'm talking to a client, I always like to draw it like this. So let me talk to you about 2 buckets. There's a big bucket and there's a little bucket. Is that showing up?
Mm-hmm.
On our side, it's not. This is something I threw in last minute, so we're gonna give it a couple seconds. If not, I'll describe it, and then I'll tell you what, I'll draw one and post it on on Discord. It's awesome to have tech savvy people in the office that can get this stuff done. May not show up. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Nope, that's my fault for throwing in a last minute wrinkle.
Yeah, we'll just have you draw it in notes and then just share it to Discord.
Okay.
But try and explain it if you can.
Yeah, so I'll describe it, and then I'm going to draw one, and we'll get it on Discord. So just look for that coming on Discord later this afternoon. I'll draw it. So what I like to draw is I like to draw 2 buckets. I draw a big bucket, and then I draw a little bucket on top of the big bucket. And I'll ask them, I'll get a sense through questions of what they're going to be passionate about doing in retirement. So if it's, for instance, oh, we're going to play a lot of golf when we retire. In the bottom of the bucket, I'll draw a little person golfing just to take what they want and put it in the bucket, like what we're trying to create. And I'll say, so this is how the product works. The little bucket is what's called life insurance cost. That's the cost of the life insurance. The big bucket is thriving in retirement. So how we fill these buckets and keep it tax-free, let me explain it to you very, very high level here. There's going to be some, and I'll draw a stream of money going into the small bucket. There's going to be a stream of money going into this life insurance cost. Now, anything over that life insurance cost, and I'll draw it flowing back over into the big bucket, starts to build your thriving retirement. But now everything over that life insurance cost, which is called the extra we're going to add to it, that all goes directly into the bucket. And then there's another stream that's going to come into the bucket, and that is interest. It's interest, and here's the cool thing about your bucket. There's no hole in your bucket. You see, a 401k or anything at market risk, there's always a potential for a hole developing in this bucket, and just as we were getting somewhere, now the bucket's going back down. See, that'll never happen. Everything that stays in this bucket, everything that goes in this bucket stays in this bucket. No one can get to this bucket except you. That's how this is going to work. Now, when I like to explain the product, I love using the front of the, and can I get rid of this so I can see Adam? Stop share. Beautiful. All right. I'll draw that and put that on Discord. It's just a little drawing that helps conceptualize the thing for the client. But when I go to explain the product, Adam, one of the things I like to do is I'm a big F&G guy. I know you're a big F&G guy. Actually, I'm repping my
Right.
F&G. That was a subtle nod towards F&G. I didn't
funny,
realize I
almost
did
wore
it.
my F&G
It's
shirt.
funny how the brain works. I knew I was going to talk about F&G, and I just grabbed the F&G shirt. That was not on purpose. I love it though. I like to use the front of the. I'm a big F&G guy. I believe in that over the other IULs that we have access to. Some carriers play games with caps, and I don't like that because that takes the predictability out of the future.
Mhm.
I like the F&G product. I like their underwriting. They make it a pretty seamless process, and we have tremendous resources at F&G, like Amy Bruce, like Larry Malik, that can get stuff done on the backside. And there's two types of carrier support. While I'm doing my F&G commercial, there's carrier support in concept, and then there's carrier support in actuality, right? Technically, we have
Mhm.
carrier support with all our carriers, but some carriers are different. Amy Bruce will go hard in the paint for us and get stuff done. But I like the front page of the illustration, Adam, and the way I explain it is we're going to ensure your retirement. And you said that earlier. We're going to ensure your retirement. This is the absolute best way to ensure, to make sure that you guys retire and retire well. Now, there's some things that can get in the way of you retiring well. The first is the worst. The worst would be, God forbid, we lose one of you while you're trying to build for retirement.
Mhm.
This answers that. A 401k does not answer that. This answers
Right.
that because there'll be a large death benefit that will be able to put in your bucket or in other buckets to help that grow and to make sure that each other retires well, no matter what happens, even if the worst happens. And
Mhm.
making sure each other can retire, even if the worst happens, that's the highest mark of loyalty and love. That's the highest mark of loyalty we can do for each other. To make sure, even if I'm not there to enjoy it, I want you to retire well. See, we're tying the emotional piece into it, right? If we don't tie the emotional piece into it, we don't get the stickiness that we need for persistency to happen. So that's the worst. All right, let's stop talking about the worst. What else can get in the way of a retirement? A critical illness, heart attack, cancer, stroke. I call those the three big retirement killers. Now, odds are high. If any of the three of us have one of those, odds are high we'll survive these days. And those odds only get better as more science develops, right? But those can be retirement killers because you're going to lose time at work. Health insurance doesn't cover everything. There's going to be travel expense. There's going to be all kinds of extra expenses that are not factored into health insurance and our daily operating costs. So guess what a lot of folks end up having to do? They end up having to write that hardship letter and start taking money out of a 401k. And then they get, not only are they going through a critical illness, now they're getting murdered on taxes and fines for getting to that money. This answers that. If you have any of those critical illnesses that can crush your retirement, this provides cash to get you through those. Now, let's put that aside. Let's talk about for what we're shooting for. And that's what's most likely, right? Most likely for you, me, for all three of us here, is if we live past the first week, month or so of our life, we're probably going to live a good long life.
Mhm.
So now let's talk about that. And then that's where I get into the growing the money, running the illustrations. And here's the most beautiful thing. We're going to pay tax on the seed, not the harvest.
Mhm.
Let me ask you, if you asked any farmer, in fact, the 2,100 and change a month IUL I just sold, this question got them. I said, let me ask, if you asked any farmer if they'd rather pay tax on the seed or tax on the harvest, what would every farmer in the history of farming in the universe tell you? Pay tax on the seed. Yeah, that's right. That's right, because the harvest is going to be so much bigger. So let's pay tax on the seed. You see, that's how we're going to create a thriving retirement. That's how this vehicle ensures a thriving retirement. Adam, what thoughts do you have on that?
Yeah, and you really need to have ideally, at least 10 years, but ideally 15 years for that too, because you want to make sure that you have enough time for it to accumulate uh, some growth with index options and the like, and actually be there for the client in a substantial enough amount that they feel like they've actually accomplished something.
Let's talk about finding the money, and you hit on that. And I want to make sure everybody got to it. You talked about 401k contributions.
Right,
It's amazing how many people are contributing 10% to their 401k.
right. When their company may match 1 or 2 or 5, but even then they're putting in, 5% more towards something that is tax deferred and not tax free. And taxes are going to go up. And there's just no, I think anyone who says taxes are going to go down is living in in a bubble somewhere. That's just not going to happen. They're going to go up. At some point, the bill's going to come due and the taxes are going to go up.
It's inevitable. It's inevitable. And that's why I call it a tax cyclone bomb in the future when all your money's in 401, when all your retirement savings is in 401k, and it's going to get taxed. Now, one of the other things I like to do to find money is say, now most people, it's a very simple thing. Most people that want to retire well are putting aside at least 10% of their income. How much of your income do you want to put aside to make sure we retire well? This is how, guys, this is how Adam finds big numbers. This is how I find big numbers. Not selling it from a life insurance basis, but moving them into a completely different space, right? People say, I have a hard time getting just a basic life insurance policy sold. There's no way there's people out there with money like that. It's about different buckets. It's about different buckets. Like, for instance, entertainment. I'm willing to spend a crazy amount of money to go play a crazy nice golf course. I am not willing to go spend a crazy amount of money on other forms of recreation, right? It's two different buckets to me. And so, yeah, the client maybe had a hard time and you got them $100, $300,000 IULE, and then they're paying $78 a month on it because they're young, and that was like, felt like a fight. When you start talking about tax-free retirement, it's a completely different bucket. That's how, guys, that's how Adam can find those big checks. That's how I can find those big checks, is having that conversation. Adam, and any other strategies on finding the money that you found successful? I know the two we talked about, or the one you talked about and the one I just talked about, that's my two go-tos.
Yeah, I like that percentage point you made, because most people are putting aside 10%, but when you're asking a person how much are you setting aside, they're very likely not going to have a number in mind. They'll have no idea what that number actually is. And that's where, by finding that extra money that they're putting into something that is tax deferred, you're able to then just change columns with it, and you're not adding to their budget. And they're not talking about setting aside $500 more than they're already spending. You're just changing the allocation without it hurting their bottom line. And people really appreciate that, and that will make total sense to them. Like, well, why wouldn't I do that? And that's the point. Yeah.
Were you trying to get my attention? There's a question.
Is there a tax benefit on the contributions?
There is not a tax benefit on the contributions. The question was, is there a tax benefit on the contributions? There's not, and you don't want one. That you want to pay. That's the illustration of the seed. You want to pay tax on the seed. You're gonna have to pay tax. Right, the government it is what it is, ain't what it ain't, right? It's the two constants, death and taxes, right?
Yeah,
or death, taxes, and the Miami Dolphins disappointing me. That seems to be the three consonants in this world.
And that question may also be pointing to the fact that some people want to maximize their contribution to these, to their 401k, for example, based on what the government allows each year. But by doing that, again, all you're doing, the government does that not because they love you, and they're wanting to help you save money. It creates revenue for them. And so why put that into a tax deferred account when you can put it into something that's tax free? But people are trained that way, and it's hard for them to understand that they've got other options.
Government would much rather tax you on the much bigger amount,
right,
than the smaller amount going in. So, and I hope that makes sense. And if it doesn't, hit me up. But for whoever asked the question, you want to pay. You're going to have to pay tax. Right. So you might as well pay it on the seed instead of the harvest. So that $1,000 a month they're putting in, they're going to have to. I mean, that's coming post-tax money. But now on the back end, that's what creates the tax-free ability to pull it out through growing it through life insurance. Let's talk about this as we're running out of time, Adam. So one of the questions I get a lot is, what is the best lead source for IULs? We're working to do them in-house. There are vendors like Infinity Box. There are vendors like Juicebox that generate IUL leads. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Any lead you have to know is still just a lead. Right. Like don't invest in IUL leads and then go, oh, well, these don't work. They do work. You just have to work through them to find the ones that actually are a fit. Now, one thing I will give you a tip if you're working IUL leads, don't miss all the IULE through Mutual of Omaha you can write. For folks that are not a fit, they don't have their financial act together. They can't do $1,000 a month. They can't do $1,200 a month. What happens is that'll happen, and they'll be like, "Oh, this stupid lead's not." Find the sale. Does it make sense? Like, they need permanent life insurance or they need a term policy. Find the sale. Don't, because believe me, if a lead could be generated where just $1,000 a month falls in your lap, the insurance companies wouldn't need us, right? So if you're gonna invest in IUL leads, find the sale, right? And when it's a no, when it's just a doesn't work, move quick, forget it, move on. But it's funny, Adam, with the boot camp you and I just were at, when that question came up, I mentioned that, but then I said the best way to find IULs is simply networking and referrals. Networking and referrals. Comments on that, finding opportunities, Adam?
Well, I think, I think a good example of that is Jeremiah Adaki. A lot of what Jeremiah does is referrals. And, and what he's done is he spent the past year and a half trying to drive himself into a group of people that financially can't afford that these services he's offering, and it's enabling him to write larger and larger policies. But and anybody can get there. It's just going to take time for you to get to that point. But the longer you procrastinate, the longer it'll take for you to get there. So it's one of those things where I just learned early on, if I'm not stressed out from learning new things, I'm not growing. And that worries me.
Say it again.
If I'm not stressed out from learning new things and like doing those things, it scares me because that means I'm no longer growing.
Out of the call. I mean, think about it, Adam. How many people have been writing final expense for 5 years and haven't moved into the if I'm not stressed because I'm learning something new, I should be scared. That was take away the call, man. I'm telling you what. So and what we're talking about on this networking thing, it's don't be a dummy. It's so crazy to me. People will make a sale and then they don't get referrals.
Right.
And they get because they get in a hurry and go call more leads. It's like, no, you gotta get yourself to a point where you don't need leads, because the referrals are the referrals, right? Once you get to the second layer of referrals, you're going to start doing some of the easiest selling you've ever done, because the second layer of referrals got to you as a referral, so they know that that's part of the process. I'll give you one quick referral question I like to use, and then Adam, if you'll give us a quick commercial for what we're going to learn next week on the Monday message, building on this one's very conceptual, and we're going to get that. We're going to get my drawing. Just don't get your hopes too high for my artwork, please. We're going to get the drawing on Discord. We're going to get you the list of questions on Discord that Adam went through. Those were so phenomenal. Here's my referral question. Once we get everything done, I say, now here's the great news. We're started on a path. If you stay on this path, you're going to retire and thrive. Now, let me ask you a quick question. Who do you want to retire and thrive with? Because we need to help them get on this path as soon as possible. Because if we don't, one of two things is going to happen. Either you're buying all the drinks or you're retiring lonely. So who do we need to help get on this path so they can retire and thrive with you? That's my referral question, to get a referral of a referral of a referral of a referral. So guys, I know we threw a lot at you this call. Go back and rewatch it. Go back and rewatch it and go listen to the questions at the beginning of the call that Adam went through. That progression of questions will create a crazy amount of revenue for you if you just start utilizing those. Now we're going to do a deeper dive next week. Leaders, I forgot to post this in the Discord. Let's all jump in that leadership room right immediately after this call, so we can talk about where we're at and our goals for recruiting, and we'll get to that. But Adam, give us a quick commercial for next week. What are we going to learn next week by jumping on the Monday message with you?
I'm going to break down those questions I asked a little more slowly, and I'll make sure to provide them on Discord so everybody has them, because it's a lot to write down. But I just would encourage everyone to be present, even if it's something they don't feel like they can do right now, because you're going to learn, and then by learning that repetition, you're going to realize, well, this isn't as hard as I think it is. And once you start doing it, then all the mystery is gone. It's not complicated anymore, because now you know what it looks like. And so I would encourage everyone, be present for next week. I'll go from the basics to things that are a little bit more 30,000 feet, just to kind of give you a big picture, so you can play it back later and watch it, and and take further notes if you want to. And I think you will really enjoy it. And you'll find it'll start making you money.
It's a no-brainer, guys. Be on that call next week. I have seen Adam do this training multiple times. I love it. It is going to help get you on the path. And like you said, even if you're not feeling like I don't know what to do, just get on the call. Let's start the layered learning. Let's start the layered learning. It's not as complicated as we make it. In fact, I'll tell you this. When you start getting into networking and then getting into referrals with IULs, business owners, people with high-paying jobs, when you start getting into that network, that selling is 10x easier than trying to wrestle a Social Security number out of somebody for a $41 a month final expense. The $41 a month final expense, like, I ain't giving you my social. You're gonna steal my identity. It's like, brother, if I was gonna steal an identity, it would not be yours.
Exactly.
But you get these business owners. The sale is so simple. Like I'm just telling you, it opens to a new world of winning, and it's so much simpler. So be on that call next week, guys. Holly and I love you. We want you to win more than you can possibly imagine. We want 2026 to be the best year in the history of your family. I need you to get moving on these IUL. So here's what I want you to think of. Between now and next Monday, 5. Give me 5. Think through your network of people you know and people you know and people you know. 5 ideal candidates for an IUL. 50 and under, either a business owner, which business owners, business owners, they'll be saying, can you take $2,000 a month? Business owners and high-paid executives and people like that you know. 5. Find them. Network. Think. Dig deep. Like if you had to, dig deep. Do that for me before next week's call. All right, let's get out. Let's get after it. Love y'all.